Hi, and welcome to The Danger of Silence, our podcast here at NAMI, Maine, where we try to focus on breaking some stigma. And today we are going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects, which is self-care. I am Devon Gross.
And I am Hannah. And we are just really excited to talk about self-care and the work of wellness.
And before we jump into it, I was just, telling Hannah the other day about the way self-care was working in my life. And now that we started talking about self-care and we started in this podcast kind of thinking about wellness with our own lives, I really, I was asked to hang out on Saturday to hang out with a friend. And I had been doom scrolling and just laying in bed and not really wanting to do anything, having absolutely no motivation. And I was really, really tempted to say no. And then, which is sometimes you do need to do. But for this instance, I had been doom scrolling for pretty much every night for a while. And I just needed to get out. And I knew that about myself. So I went and I hung out with my friend, even though I really in that moment didn't want to. And it just completely changed my mood. It completely changed my outlook on life. The whole weekend, I was much more motivated to get stuff done. And I just think it's really cool since we started this podcast and started talking about our own mental health and helping others' mental health and everything. It's really made such a difference in my life to be really aware of okay, what do I need to do for self-care? And sometimes it is laying in bed, never doom scrolling for me. Sometimes it's laying in bed and watching a show. Or it's going out with friends, and there's lots of different things we're going to touch on here. But I just think it's really powerful how much this podcast hopefully has helped a lot of you, but has also helped me work through it all.
Yeah, it's a great refocus. I think it's really easy when you're doing well or things aren't that busy to think, oh, my self-care is fine. But I think even just in preparing for this episode, looking at my own sleep hygiene, room for improvement there, seeing that after holiday changes, things that you've let slip around the house, things like that, were really good to just refocus on and kind of reassess. And I think the beginning of the year can be a great one. I'm a big believer in, winter blues, working around the winter blues. And for me, a big self-care part of that is wellness journals. I think that they're great.
That.
I don't use them constantly, but I think especially during the winter months, going in every day, rating my mood, looking at my goals, seeing what I'm actually doing, long-term goals to focus on, and then even little things like drinking enough water, making sure that you're eating healthy, making sure that I'm going outside every day.
Yeah.
Just a way to track those and get you in a positive mindset, because I think winter is a time when self-care really comes into place. And it looks a little different maybe than the rest of the year, but I think a lot of it is, just readjusting for what you need throughout your life, because it's never going to look the same.
Yeah, completely. I really love the idea of a wellness journal. That's something that I think I'll start doing myself. I think that it's really good to, as you were saying, having a place to keep track of everything. And also kind of, it's definitely motivation, but I also think it's a great way to look back on this is all the stuff I have done for myself. And really just see, and also to see the difference. I know if there's a day where I do just lay in bed on Instagram all day, and I don't drink water, and maybe I eat, but it's really unhealthy, snacky stuff, and I just don't do much, I definitely feel way worse. My mental health suffers, and I start being very negative. And I think that to look back and see okay, I had a good day this day. And of course you could do everything in the world and you still might not have a good day. That's just the way it works. But I like to do as much as I possibly can to try to have a good day. And so it's good to look back and you could say, hey, this day was a really good day. And look, on this day, I got all of this. I did all of this stuff. And that really helped me. Or just saying, maybe today I'm not having the best day and I'm just wanting to lay in bed and not do anything. We say, but that's okay, because for this entire month I've done all of these things. I'm not doing this every day. It's just sometimes it happens, and I think it's a great way to keep track of that. And as you were saying, I love I love the new year. I love the new year. New Year's Eve is one of my favorite days of the year because I think it's just so magical thinking about all the stuff that can happen, which for some people is pressure. For me, it's like a lovely like restart, reset, and just really focus on what I was doing or what I want to do, focus on what's happened that year. And it just feels magical. I love New Year's Eve. And the point of this is that having that fresh start, that new goals, I have something for myself where I wrote like my New Year's resolutions, but they were all very, very realistic, very goal oriented and like almost SMART goals of here's the process of how I'm going to make it happen. And on Sundays, what I do is I sit down and go over them because it's really easy to write goals and then forget about them. So on Sunday, I make myself sit down, go over them and really try to stay intentional about those every week. So that's part of what I do for self-care as well.
Yeah, I think with the new year, I'm a big believer in building new habits and habit tracking. So doing the pick one new thing to add to your habits of your daily routine and just focus on that. Be patient with yourself. And then every 30 days, reintroducing like a new habit or something else. I think in preparation for this, I feel like I have good dental hygiene, but recently I'm going to read this because I was very excited.
I love it.
An interesting thing I just learned from the NAMI Ask the Expert in November. So there's a potential link that's being researched right now between gum health, oral hygiene, and brain health, which makes sense. I think we think a lot of infections, how they can affect the brain, those kind of things. But they've looked at the link between gum disease and the shrinking of the hippocampus. And this means preventing oral disease can help prevent cognitive declines like those seen in dementia and Alzheimer's. Now, I got this information from the wonderful Dr. Andrew Nierenberg from Mass General. He spoke at the NAMI National Ask the Expert on bipolar disorder, on like emerging treatments and research. If you would like to learn more about this, we'll have a few different links from I think it's the NIH, but then also a couple different schools who are currently doing research on this, which I just thought was so cool. So one of my habit tracking for this month was making sure that I'm flossing a lot and keeping really good at gum health. And I mean, that made me think of Mitch Hedberg. I don't know if you're a big lover of Mitch Hedberg. He is a deceased, but he was a stand-up comedian for a long time, and he has really great humor. I don't know. He's a hoot. And he really equated the difficulty of building new habits with breaking old ones. He has a wonderful joke about how he's never been a smoker, but he understands how difficult it is to quit smoking because it's as difficult as it is for him every day to remember to floss.
That's a really good point.
And I was like, he's like, yeah, it makes you full of anxiety and shame. And he says it in a much different way.
A way that's
not that
you're not funny. Not that you're not
interesting. but it really struck with me for like my whole life where I was like, because when I heard that I had braces, it was in middle school, and I was like, flossing is the hardest thing in the world. Oh my God, yeah. I loved it. And then braces ruined that for me. And I only had them for 9 months.
I had them for 7.5 years. Sorry, I know that's not what this podcast is about.
That is self-care.
But it was very hard for me to do self-care because braces for 7.5 years is just wild. It's wild. But I really love to hear about that. And it's really, it's another thing. It makes so much sense. It really does. Your mental health relates to a lot of different things, and your gum health and your oral health. It affects your other parts of your health. Right. So, sorry, how many times can I say health in one sentence?
It was good. We were vibing. It's the end of the day. Should we talk about a little bit of what self-care might be?
Yes, I would love to talk about what self-care might be. Yeah. I'll just start with some of the things that I do for self-care. And there are also a lot of things on this list. A wellness toolbox. That's something that, is creating a list of all the things that fuel you. I actually have a list. I just call it things I love. So that way I'm in a bad mood, I can remember all the things that I love. For instance, music I love. The Jonas Brothers or Squishmallows, which I've said both of those as fun facts on here too. And then, the tea. I love drinking tea and I love specific books and I love going to the river and reading and really just remembering all those things I love. So I have that list, just things I love. And then if I'm in a bad mood, I can look at that and I can remember. And also just like visual representations of things I love. I'm a very visual person. And I like to have like pictures around and then it just kind of reminds me, or having like a bookcase with all my books showing. I just like having that reminder of like, okay, these are the things that you can do. And very much if it's out of sight, out of mind. So if I have like a box full of like I love crossword puzzles, but I have a box full of crossword puzzle books, I'm not going to do it because it's in something. So just kind of having that, like if I have them out, like I have a wellness toolbox in the sense that I also have like a pile of stuff that like, okay, these might make me feel better. So that's just something for myself that I know has really helped me. I do love how they call it a wellness toolbox because I never thought about it like that. So I do really love that.
Yeah, I think a lot of my self-care habits, like the way I've conceptualized it, has changed since I did the RAP program. And then I kind of forgot about it for a little while because that is like as we move through life. And then I really like revisiting it and adding to it, like my wellness toolbox, and then expanding on what that means now. And I mean, I think a lot of times when we think of self-care, it's kind of one or the other. It's either something that's super, super fun and maybe a little indulgent that you might feel guilty about doing, but it's totally valid.
Yep.
Or it's all the things that are really, really hard to maintain that you're really putting a lot of focus on.
Yeah.
And I think it's really nice to, in your own life, conceptualize self-care as a combination and a spectrum of all of those things. So doing one piece of self-care a day to maintain your wellness might mean having one big activity. It can also mean maintaining a daily routine that's healthy, maintaining sleep hygiene, going out, getting fresh air, going for a walk, connecting with friends, and also being gentle with yourself. I feel like I'm going to say that every week. But it's really important to, especially when we're talking about the new year and resolutions, like you said, you have this wonderful goal plan that you've set up, and making these small achievable goals too, so that you're not set up for failure or have this kind of, shoot for the stars is wonderful. But I also think it's great to kind of create a pattern for success, like set yourself up for success. And I think a really wonderful thing about self-care is that it's also putting the power back on you. So you have the strength in order to maintain your daily life and routine, and also doing things like I love recommending to callers, talking about going over crisis plans, going over, what you can do to notice when things start to shift and look like maybe there's some stressors or signs that you can keep up with, and then creating a crisis plan with those that you love so that okay, if things do get bad, we're all people, things happen sometimes, then we kind of have the people in our life already set up to help you get through that. But hopefully if you're doing a lot of good self-care and you're working, we're just minimizing the risk of that happening.
I really love that, how that is also a form of self-care, is, really setting yourself up for success. And I know, talking about triggers or stressors that have, I'm really trying.
You're doing great.
Okay, cool.
He's only going to have to edit out like 4-5 have things in me 5 minutes at the beginning. Thank you, Ambrose. 1, 2, should we clap?
Okay. Just talking about like triggers and stressors, like you had brought up, and I like how that is something that is also self-care, is knowing your triggers and your stressors, and really being aware of that, and really being aware. Something for me, a trigger is stress, and is having a lot on my plate and not giving myself time to myself. I often, my body can feel it much more than my brain can feel it when I'm feeling stressed and overwhelmed, is I am getting the physical reaction to it. My brain might be like, yeah, everything's fine, we're good, but physically it's not. And so just being aware of, maybe I don't, maybe my brain is saying, oh, I can keep doing this, but just really taking a step back and listening to it, and really, spending a moment with myself and thinking like, is this something that's good for me? Is this something that is this something that is going to overflow me and my cup? And that's not the wording, but is this something that is going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back, be the thing that really just really affects my mental health in a negative way? Is this something that is worth for me to do? And really just taking a step back and, being okay with saying no to things, being okay with saying no to myself for things. Maybe it's something extra I want to do. I'm a mom. Like, I do a lot of stuff for myself, but sometimes that means that I don't have time to add something else onto my plate, and just being able to really know that about myself, I think, is such a strong part of my self-care, is understanding my limits and understanding what I can handle. And of course, there is that balance, because sometimes I do need to push myself out of that zone and add something else to my plate because I'm missing that specific piece. But I'm also very good at just taking on too much stuff. So I think that, and I really like how you had brought that up, and it's not just, self-care is great when you do those super fun and have like wonderful days and just do all this super fun stuff. And then it's also great when you're, doing stuff that really helps and fuels your body and is really good, exercising and really, eating healthy and that kind of self-care. But, I think
sleep hygiene,
sleeping well.
We're just going to keep bringing it up. We're going to do a whole episode about it. So we'll talk about it momentarily, in this podcast, but we'll really expand on that. But
yeah,
sleep health is a really important component to mental and physical health and well-being. So sometimes that can be a really good indicator that something needs to change. If you notice that you're having erratic sleep, difficulty, you're waking up and you're not feeling refreshed, that can be a really good implication that you're like under a lot of stress or dealing with anxiety. Maybe there are things in your diet that need to change. It can be a great indicator, and also a really wonderful building block to self-care. So we'll expand on that a lot more. We're both very passionate about that.
It is. It's just so important to take care. I always, I noticed that with my child. He's 5, and I can tell. I think it's interesting because when you look at a child, you can oftentimes see like where our own behaviors and our own mental health is coming from, because it's very obvious in a child. When a child's tired, like they're angry a lot of times. My child gets angry. He's very easily upset. And so there's a lot of emotions that go on there, very impulsive, not a lot of patience. And so it's much more intense to see in a child, whereas like in an adult, it's usually a lot more subtle. But noticing how he behaves when he doesn't sleep, and then, I do the same thing. Maybe it's on a more subtle level, but I still do the same thing. And the same thing with a lot of self-care and really noticing that as well. As Hannah said, we will be diving more into that on our sleep hygiene podcast. But I definitely think it is so important to take a look at that and really just know, as we were talking earlier too, all of these things are wonderful. But, for me, self-care is also just, I have this mug that is from England, and it makes me really happy. And I like to drink a cup of tea and have my mug, and just that alone is just something that I look forward to. And it doesn't have to be all this pressure. It can be just something simple that you do that you love.
Yeah, I know for me, one thing that brings me a lot of joy is buying artwork from people and then also displaying artwork. So I have various boxes full of prints and paintings and everything that I kind of cycle through in my house and refresh, because I am a maximalist, but that would be pretty overwhelming to actually have them all up. And that can be a wonderful exercise in self-care, to just go through, sort through things and change up what's being, put on display in your home. And then you can also just appreciate, like, it's a great way for me to like dust and clean and do those things. But it's also like a wonderful way to get to be exposed to a whole lot of art that I know brings me a lot of joy and beauty. Like, I love big framing projects. It's just so satisfying and fun.
That sounds really fun. I did not know that.
Yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah, and that, yeah, definitely, that made me think of like another thing of self-care for me is donating stuff if I no longer. I'd say I'm in the middle of a minimalist and a maximalist, which I guess would just be average. I don't know. I'm not sure.
You're an average averagealist. Yeah.
Averageless. But I don't know why that mattered.
No, you're finding the balance between those two things. So maybe not like extreme minimalism, which I think as a maximalist, part of my self-care is also understanding the restrictions of like, I can think about clearing out my house and having things, but also like enjoying the things that I do have. Like, I can't, Marie Kondo is just not going to work for me. I can't own only 9 books.
It doesn't even work for her. She gave up on it, which good for her. I'm not saying it was a bad give up, but she was like, wait, I need to just spend time with my family and stop worrying about this.
Yeah.
Which if brings you joy, that is fine. For me, minimalism, the thought of it just really overwhelms me. But I am, definitely I enjoy things and I enjoy having them out. As I said, I like to see things. I like to see my possessions. I like to see things. But I do often get overwhelmed with the amount of stuff I have. I keep getting rid of it and it keeps showing up and I still haven't quite figured out how that happens. And I find, doing a nice deep clean and going through stuff. And then I've really lately, I went through I have bags and bags of stuff. And normally I might just drop them off somewhere, but I'm really trying to be very intentional with what I do with them and saving, stuff for someone who really needs them, or donating to an organization that I truly, really believe. And I know that they are doing good things with that. And that's kind of been a self-care for me, is to really take the time to do what I am able to do. And also that actually brings me to another good point of my self-care lately, is also remembering what I can and doing what I can do. I mean, that brings up with, it translates into with self-care, the same thing. There's like, what can I do to help? Maybe in this moment, it's just drinking a cup of tea I like, or maybe in this moment it is going, to the mall and going shopping. And so, but it also translates into a form of self-care for me, is not putting so much pressure on myself.
Yeah.
The world can get so heavy and there's so much. And sometimes I just want to change it all and fix it all. I am one person and there is at least 8 billion people on this earth. So that is not possible. But it can get heavy. And so taking a step back from it all, but also remembering what can I do right now? And that to me is also self-care. It's like doing the things that I can do to help out.
Doing some volunteering, donating. I mean, there are a lot of great causes to be involved with kind of throughout the year in Maine. I think we're really lucky in that we have a pretty vibrant natural conservancy like across the state, where you can in this spring, if you have some extra time and you know that you need to exercise more, sign up and volunteer to clear paths for the hiking trails, because that's a really, they always need people to go through and help clean after, I mean, especially this year, I think, with,
Yeah, I'm sure with all the...
if you live on the coast, I'm sure that there's a local organization that needs your help doing some restoration work or cleanup after the flooding, doing, you know, little things that you can do, even if it's like helping a bird with a broken wing, remembering avian haven, or reporting a mammal that's been left on the coast of Maine. Get in touch with Marine Mammals of Maine.
You're looking at me as if I know. Hannah is full of a plethora of information. I feel like I could just listen to you talk all day about so much stuff, and I love this.
Well, we'll always call. I just love all the helplines that you can call. I know all the things. So if you know a bird in trouble, I can get you in touch with who the contact is.
I know who to contact if you need to identify a mushroom.
Yeah. Oh, actually, yeah. If you are accidentally poisoned by a mushroom in New England, I know exactly the person who can help you get through that moment. So interesting.
Yeah.
Right here in NAMI.
Yeah, we have a great group of people here.
Yeah, we have great expertise on this team. Well, they're not on this team. In this facility.
We're a team.
We're a team as a whole group.
Yes.
Yeah.
We are a great team, and I appreciate that. And that is self-care, is working somewhere. Obviously not always possible. I understand that. But if you're able to find a job you love with people you love, it has changed my life.
Oh, yeah.
I've never woken up in the morning and been excited to go to work. So that is huge self-care. Nice. I know. I love it. I love my job. I just love it. Part of it is making podcasts, which I also love.
Mm-hmm. We love podcasts.
But I feel like we could both, I mean, we could just talk about a lot of stuff all day, but I feel like we could both talk about self-care all day.
Yeah.
But I feel like we should
wrap it up
and get to our
fun facts.
We need a little music.
We should write some music for that. I'll go through the... I'm not going to get into that. Sorry, I was going to go into the internet database of music. It's a great database. We'll look through the scores. We'll see what's available.
Oh, is it like the royalty-free music?
Yeah, but for like classical music and stuff. So you can get all the scripts, multi-harmonies, symphony structures. It's great.
Told you, she knows a lot of stuff about a lot of stuff.
I majored in music. So I had to use it for homework. That's the only thing. It was not that impressive. I'll be true. So, Devon, would you like to say some fun fact about you?
Yes, my favorite fun fact is, Hannah's going to love it. Your talk about comedians really made me think about who my favorite comedian is. And my favorite comedian's Pete Davidson. Mm-hmm. And I just feel like everyone needs to know that. Yeah. So, and if he wants to come on the podcast...
Open invitation for Pete Davidson to talk about the stigma behind mental health and break that stigma with us.
So open about it, and that's one of the reasons I love his comedy. It's just that he is so open about his mental health, and I think that is so cool. It can be really refreshing. Yeah. So Hannah, I would love to hear from you.
Well, for self-care for me in the winter, I have a scar that I have to keep covered with Vaseline on any day that's cold like this, on my face, where I have a scar from when I caught a cormorant on Route 1, and then it hooked into my nose with its bill, and it's been years since healed over, but so that's my fun self-care, is I keep a little thing of Aquaphor with me to deal with this bird bite. But that's how you know, like, ooh, it's going to be a dry one.
I'm going to know that from now on.
The cormorant bite is hanging around today.
I'm going to ask you how it's doing every day.
And again, for all of your wild bird needs, Avian Haven is great if you're mid-coast, central Maine. Support.
Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us.
This podcast. I'm sorry.
We will let them sponsor us.
Yeah, if a nonprofit rescue would like to sponsor us, we're really open to it.
I just want some birds. Just like,
Oh,
can we do a
that would be
podcast with them? I don't know what
lovely.
about.
I don't know. Maybe the wonderful mental. Oh,
Mental health the birds.
well, I think really helps like a lot of people do to get involved. Part of like the annual Audubon Society bird tally that you do. I think a lot of people do it. It's
That
a great way to
sounds so
find community.
fun.
You kind of go out, you spend time, and then you just register every bird that you see in your community, and then that's a great way that they can have like an census. Then the more people that get involved, the better it is. Yeah, it's a great way to meet people, identify birders in your life. And
I mean,
you can
I've
do it
never
with
been to
kids,
birds,
friends.
but that sounds really fun. I like organization.
You've never been to birds?
I've never been into birds.
Oh, I was like, oh.
This is like a Bristol.
This is like Bristol scenario all over again. It's from earlier in the pod, sorry.
No, I've never really been into birds, but that sounds like I like organization. That sounds like it would be really helpful for my mental health. So
It's
I
really
love that
fun
suggestion.
and it's really it's great for families, little kids to get out and learn about your community and learn a little bit more about our feathered friends all around. Yeah. So I hope we have
literally. Wait, hold on. Sorry, we gotta. Whew. I just am slowly through the podcast going lower and lower.
Yeah. We'll do a wrap up. Sorry. We have some good material for possibly bloopers.
So much.
If Ambrose, you're
You could just do like me and Hannah blooper reel.
yeah, we'd be fine with that. That could be an episode of this.
Just our blooper.
Just our bloopers and get a real
bloops.
intimate look into our personal lives. Okay, so for the danger of silence,
We have a lot of really good podcasts coming up.
we really do. We encourage you to work. We have some. I mean, I don't want to spoil the surprise. We'll say sleep hygiene, but that is one of several exciting ones that we have coming for the spring, and some guests that we'll be inviting on. Yeah. I mean, I know we've had them before, but we'll be really amping it up this spring. So remember to like and subscribe. I don't know. Remember
to the YouTube channel. Hit the like down below.
Hit the like.
Turn on the bell for notification. No, that was great. I'm not making fun of you.
I used Stitcher, so I don't, and they went under, so I don't know how to use Spotify, but do you know how to use it?
I use Apple Music.
Okay, so
I'm not sure. I don't really listen to a lot of podcasts except for on YouTube.
I listen to podcasts every single day.
Usually it's just YouTube ones.
Hours of podcasts a day. I have a long commute, so I listen to 2 hours of true crime podcasts every day.
And as we know from the horror, I mean, at this point, Ambrose, I don't know how much of this is even.
I don't know if
going
any
in.
of this is
like
usable.
we just have a lot.
Should
of
we just say
conversation.
thank you for listening and then just click? Yeah. Actually, should we do that?
Yeah, probably.
Just be like,
most of this can get edited out of this. point.
Yeah. Oh, God.
I trust your judgment.
You're a great guy, Ambrose. I'm sorry. We
This
want
is
to get this
40
in before
minutes long.
February ended. This is 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, Ambrose.
I'm so sorry.
You're a mensch. We respect and appreciate all
If
your
it
work.
wasn't so good, I would just say let's make it shorter. But also, realistically, it would end up being longer because
If we try and record this again, it's going to be like 3 hours long. And we're going to be all over the place. So, for the danger in silence, I am Hannah Woodman.
And I am Devon Gross.
And just thank you so much for spending your time with us today.
And we will see you next time.
Bye.